I'm gonna get so much crap for this. I can feel it in my bones. Howdy people, this is Carla and I'm here with that promised review of Avengers Infinity War. Now, before I begin though, I want to make it clear because we live in a world these days where if you don't say you absolutely love something, people assume that you hate it. And that is awful and incorrect, and you can like something even while you're not like over the moon about it, right? So I just want to make it clear before I start actually talking about this movie. One, there will be spoilers, so if you haven't seen it, what the hell are you doing here? Just go watch the movie and then come back and watch this video.
Danger, Will Robinson! Danger! No, Will Robinson! Danger!
But two, you're gonna hear me nitpick a lot. I had a lot of problems with this movie, and I'm going to be honest here, so I'm going to tell you what those problems are. That does not mean I did not like it. I enjoyed myself a lot. I laughed like crazy. I thought this movie was an event for sure. It was very well crafted. It's one of those movies that are just historic in the sense that you never, as a comic book fan, you never imagined that something like this, of this scale, of this complexity would ever be made, and somehow it happened. And it's incredible that the Russo brothers did. Like, I bow to them. There's no way in hell that I would have thought when I was a kid that a movie like this would be possible. But it was, and I enjoyed myself immensely with it. That doesn't mean that I think it's perfect. It's not one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time. Let's just put it that way. But I did like it, and I do think that everybody needs to see this movie just because it's a good movie, first of all, but also because it's just such a milestone that I think pop culture will be referencing this movie for a long time, and I think everybody needs to sort of be aware of that. So when you hear me say negative things about this movie, please don't take it the wrong way. I did like it. I liked it a lot. That doesn't mean it was perfect, so I'm going to nitpick it, as I generally do with most movies overall. It's not gonna be in my top 3 Marvel movies, probably not gonna be in my top 5 Marvel movies, but I did like it. I enjoyed it a lot. So please take that as I intended to, and don't suddenly accuse me of hating a movie that I liked well enough, because you can't just picture things not being either black or white, okay? It has to, there's a gray area in there, and I am somewhere in that. So over the weekend, as people went in and watched Infinity War, I heard a lot of reactions. Most people thought it was amazing, and that's great. I think that's awesome for them. If you enjoyed this movie, if it made you feel things, that's fantastic. That's what this movie should do. I knew ahead of time that this wasn't going to be my movie. I mentioned this a lot of times before. I'm not a fan of the Avengers. I'm a Marvel fan in that I prefer Marvel comics over DC, for example, or over any other comic labels. But out of the entire Marvel universe, I never really cared about any of these Avengers characters that we have in the MCU right now. I don't like Iron Man. Captain America never really did much for me either. I barely knew who Black Widow was before things started. I really thought that Thor was just like super silly, and it's just, I never cared about these characters, so I'm not as emotionally invested in them from the get-go than I would have been had I been a Marvel fan. It's a true testament to how good the MCU is that I go in and watch these movies and actually feel things, you know, that, and I actually find myself emotional for these characters. Especially Captain America has grown so much on me, you guys. You have no idea. I barely cared about him. I just used to see him as a caricature from the 40s that fought Nazis. When they took Captain America and made an actual three-dimensional character out of him, I was not expecting that. I still don't care much about the others, but Captain America, I've always, like, Chris Evans really did give him enough depth for me that I actually found myself liking it. But the rest, I don't really care. So I always knew that I'd go watch the Avengers movies as a sort of like pop cultural reference point, because I feel like if I don't watch them, I'm going to be left out of the conversation altogether, and I think it's important to be a part of it. So when I went to watch Avengers, like, the only reason I've never seen any of the Iron Man movies, I don't really care. I went in to watch Captain America and Thor because I knew that they were ramping up to Avengers, and I knew that Avengers was going to be this huge historic deal, the first Avengers movie. So I watched those two because I knew that I was going to see Avengers eventually, and I watched Avengers because it was this huge pop cultural deal. And I actually really liked the first Avengers movie. I think it was so well done. The sequel, not so much. Ultron was a bit of a disappointment. It was entertaining, but it was a bit of a disappointment. I liked Infinity War better than I liked Ultron. I thought it did a lot better with balancing the characters and especially the villain. But I knew it wasn't going to be my movie. Like, I went into Infinity War, everybody was like in hysterics about who was going to die and who wasn't going to die, and I was like, well, you know, I'll go in, as long as Ant-Man and Hawkeye don't die, I'm good. Anybody else, I don't really care for, you know. Maybe Scarlet Witch and I think Bucky has grown on me, but I kind of already knew that I wouldn't care as long as it wasn't Ant-Man and Hawkeye, because those two are my favorites, right? So that's my mentality when I went in. But people were really, really in hysterics about this. Like, my entire timeline in Twitter and also Tumblr was like, I'm not right. And I'm like, okay. I knew it wasn't the movie for me. The trailers didn't do much. The first one I thought was amazing. That's for sure. The first trailer we got for this movie, I thought was great. The others didn't do much for me at all. And I knew that this was going to be a big battle, you know, like a battle movie. From the trailers I could tell that, and I've mentioned before, I'm not really into fight scenes necessarily. There are a few that I have loved, like for example the big airport scene in Civil War, which I adore to this day. But I knew that this movie wasn't going to be necessarily made for me. I appreciate it in the sense that it is the culmination of 10 years of Marvel movies coming together. Like, they've been setting up this Thanos thing for a decade, basically, or nearly a decade. And I felt like this was something that I had to see. Again, the Avengers movies are all like huge pop cultural moments that I feel I have to be a part of. And the Russos did it really well. I adore the Russo brothers. Like, Civil War is one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time, and I am still in awe at how well they can balance all these characters. So I knew from the get-go that this wasn't going to be the movie for me, and that other people were probably a lot more excited about it than I was. So when you hear what I'm going to say about it, don't take it as a bad thing. I'm not trying to bash the movie. I think it's a great movie. It's just not the movie for me, right? It was fun, it was entertaining. I definitely recommend that everybody go watch it, but it's not my thing, and that's something I can't apologize for, sorry. But I really thought it was well done, and as much as I have a lot of nitpicks, I also have a lot of good things to say about it. So I'll start with the negative because I want to end this video on a positive note. But definitely, I'm gonna start with the negative so I can get them out of the way. So yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm not into fight scenes. It was the least interesting part of the movie for me, and there was a lot of fighting in this movie, so I felt like some of the fights went on for a little too long. I felt like some of them were a little bit confusing as well. Like, for example, the fight scenes with the Hulk in New York City when Bruce was trying to get like the Hulk out and he kept refusing. I felt like that ran for a little too long. I would have cut a little bit of it. Also, the fight with Thanos on Titan, I felt went a little bit too long. I liked what happened in between the fighting, like when they were trying to pull out the gauntlet and the whole thing with Star-Lord. I liked that because it was an emotional plot point, but the fighting itself, it was just like Spider-Man bouncing around, and I get confused easily. I remember that the first thing I said when I walked out of the theater after, you know, I have to get to the freaking bathroom because I'm dying kind of thing, the first thing I turned around and told my cousin, I am so glad I did not watch this in 3D. Because I don't like 3D to begin with, but I can't even, like, I would have probably thrown up. Because 3D is such an onslaught on the senses, and I know that some people love it, and that's great, but for me, it makes me queasy. And there was so much fighting and bouncing around in this movie that I felt so glad that I went with good old 2D for me, because otherwise, I feel like I would have gotten sick. Also, in the general sense, the editing was flawless. I thought the Russos, like I said, did a great job of balancing everybody's storylines out in a way that didn't feel like it was too much of this one and too much of this one. I do have one tiny complaint, and it's that the forge scenes with Thor and Rocket and Groot and Peter Dinklage's character, what's his name? Irie? I can't remember. Those scenes at the forge, it took a little bit too long. I would have cut them probably significantly. I don't think they needed to be that long. But that's basically my only concern as far as editing goes. Like, everything else felt very organic and felt very well distributed. The transitions didn't feel jarring at all. So those two things, either the fight scenes were a bit too long, at least a couple of them, or the forge scenes, I would have cut out some stuff. Like, you didn't need it to be that long. I do feel like the Captain America side of things didn't get as much focus, which, like I mentioned, I like Captain America better now, so I was hoping to see more of him. But I guess, I don't know, I mean, I guess Civil War was very much Captain America heavy, so maybe the Russos were just trying to balance that and give us, like, Tony's side of things now. But the thing is, and this is, again, it's just my personal thing because I loved Civil War so much. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies of all time, and I felt like this one sort of undermined Civil War a little bit. And I understand that people don't care about this kind of stuff. I do, though. So on a personal level, I feel like the way they undid everything that happened in Civil War was a little bit too quick. Like, it's just like, oh yeah, okay, War Machine now changed his mind and now he's helping Cap. That's it. We're good now. And it's... no. I don't like it. I feel like there should have been more to that story that we didn't get to see. And that probably weighs a lot in why I don't like this movie as much. Because I love Civil War so much that it kind of bothered me when I was watching it. Especially Black Widow. She had very few moments. They never explained why she was blonde. I mean, I can think of a few reasons, you know. She was in exile and everything, but, you know, they could have mentioned it, like somebody just say, hey, I like the new hair color, instead of pretending that she's been blonde all along, I guess. I mean, they did take the time to mention the whole Bruce and Natasha thing that everybody wants to just forget about. Come on, just let it die. I would rather you talk about Natasha's hair being a different color than about that awful relationship that nobody liked anyway. So, you know, why would you bring that back? I do think in the movie there were a few things that were entirely too convenient. If you get my drift, as a writer, those things kind of stand out. Like, that's convenient. I remember I turned to my brother and was like, yeah, that's convenient. Especially Thor's new axe, which yeah, when Peter Dinklage turned to him and said, "He can even open the Bifrost," I was like, "Oh, that's convenient." I literally turned to my brother and went like, "Oh, that's super convenient, right?" Like, why did you not give him a hammer that could open the Bifrost ages ago? No, now Heimdall is dead and, you know, he needs a way to get back to Earth. That's really convenient, I'm just saying. I did not like that Groot barely did anything at all. I mean, I found him funny, don't get me wrong. I like that he was like a moody teenager kind of stuff and everyone's like, language! I found it really funny. But he wasn't really doing anything, he was just there. And it's kind of fantastic because at the moment I decided to go, they were in the forge and Groot was just sitting there. And I turned to my cousin and said, but Groot isn't doing anything. Is he not going to do anything? And that was like 2 seconds later, Groot did something. Which I guess the Russo brothers were just reading my mind on that. But I wish there had been more to Groot, I guess. Which is weird because I don't necessarily like Groot, but I just don't like characters just standing around doing nothing. So, I guess. Also, I don't like the Hulk as a character. I never saw any of the Hulk movies. I don't really care for him in any of the Avengers movies at all either. I didn't watch the Ragnarok, so I don't care about the Hulk. He's not a draw to me like he is to a lot of other people. But, you know, if you have the Hulk in your movie, then use him. I didn't entirely understand why they decided to go with this idea that he refused to come out. I assume that it's because he's scared of Thanos, but then that doesn't sound like something the Hulk would do. So, you know, if you're not gonna use the Hulk, then just don't use the Hulk. Just keep Banner separate, like maybe helping with the science side of things. I found the Hulkbuster armor really distracting. Like, they were using it just for, you know, comic relief at parts, and I did not like it, and I don't really care to see it in a fight either, because Banner can't barely run with it, so I felt it was unnecessary and distracted. I understand why they had to have Bruce Banner there, because somebody had to bridge the gap between Cap and Iron Man and everything, but I wish they had just kept him on the science side of things, rather than put him in an armor that he's never used in his life and send him out to fight the greatest villain that I've ever dealt with. Like, it makes zero sense, I'm sorry. The CGI on this was actually really good. I mean, Thanos looked incredible, but that's not to say that all the CGI was great. I remember my brother and I turning to each other. There was a scene where I don't remember who it was, if it was Cap or Black Panther, were at the edge of the force field and they were talking to the woman from the Black Order. I don't know their names, sorry. They were talking to the woman, and all the way up to here, I had thought, oh, she's just in makeup, right? She should look fine. She should look real because it's makeup. But then at that moment, she started speaking, and I was like, wait, is her face like CGI? Like, what is happening? And my brother turned to me and said, the CGI is really bad on her, isn't it? And I was like, wow, okay. Yeah, she probably has some CGI in her looks, in her face. And that one stood out to me. So I wish they had done a better job with the CGI on her, since, you know, everything else seems so great. Also, I know that people are gonna be so mad at me for saying this, but I know that the climax scene of everything at Wakanda was supposed to be like this really awesome fight scene where you get like all the Avengers together fighting for the common good. And it was, but at the same time I'm like, where did the alien demo dog thingies come from? Like, was I supposed to know that Thanos had those things ready to go? I wish they were just fighting against the Black Order themselves, because they had such great fights. Like, the New York City fight with Maw was fantastic, and it was like 4 against 1, and he curb stomped them all. I thought that was great, and I don't see why they couldn't do that in Wakanda as well, especially since most of the Black Order was there. Like, if only one of them can take on 4 of the Avengers and win, why did you need the crazy Demodog creatures for? I wasn't expecting that, and all of a sudden when they started like charging all of the Avengers and the Wakandan people, it reminded me a lot of Ultron's mini-me's from Age of Ultron, and that's not a good comparison you want to make, because in the end it ends up being that the big climactic battle is facing a bunch of mooks that you don't even care for. You know what I mean? Like, oh, they're sure they're ugly and scary, but I don't care if you kill them. Like, they're just Demodog thingies that I don't even care about. So I didn't like that. I know that a lot of people love that battle scene because just seeing all the Avengers together, it's the hype is there, I guess. But I didn't. I wish they hadn't done that. I wish they had just been fighting the Black Order, and the Black Order was just that strong that they needed all of the Avengers to band together to deal with them. I didn't like the alien dog thingies. As far as Thanos goes, I have seen a lot of articles already and reviews already declaring Thanos the greatest villain in the MCU, and I mean, in a sense he is, because again, they've been building this up for 10 years and it would have sucked if he had been a bad villain. I think Thanos was good. He was really intimidating and scary, and you really believe that even before he had all of the stones, you believe that he really wanted to destroy half of the universe, and that he really thought he was doing the right thing, and that, you know, he would do anything to get to that point. He looked really good. He looked imposing. So I like that. I don't know that I would go as far as to call him the greatest villain of the MCU, because fight after fight, like every time Thanos made an appearance, it would hit me that he's not very smart, is he? Like, he seems, especially like straight from the get-go in the very first scene, he just leaves Thor alive for no reason. And it makes me so annoyed whenever a villain does that, because it's like, have you not read the evil overlord list, dude? Like, you do. If you can kill your enemies, you kill them. You don't leave them alive, because they will come back and it will bite you in the ass, dude. So like, it made me so upset that he just left Thor there, you know, alive after killing Loki and Heimdall. Like, why did you not kill Thor? You just walked away and left him there for, you know, for him to actually come back. And I understand that if he had killed Thor in the beginning of the movie, we wouldn't have the rest of the movie probably, but it speaks bad of Thanos as an intelligent villain. I don't like that. It bothers me. So yeah, I think Thanos was probably better than most Marvel villains, definitely better than Ultron. I liked him. I thought he was what a villain should be for the most part. It bothers me that they would like write him doing those stupid things that no self-respecting villain should ever do, and still somehow manage to make him intimidating. So it's kind of a double-edged thing. Like, he was really well written because I liked him in spite of that, but it wasn't enough to make me forget about that. Like, he did it a lot. He did it a lot. Like, even Maw and people from the Order also kept doing, like, they kept leaving people alive, and I'm like, what is wrong with you people? I don't know. And I also, another thing that I didn't like about Thanos is that they gave him a backstory in, like, with Titan and how it got destroyed because of overpopulation or whatever it was. I didn't like that. I feel like it took away from his intimidation factor. Like, you can have a villain saying, yes, I'm going to destroy half a population of the entire universe because there's too many people and it causes, you know, war and famine and whatever you want it to be. You can say that and people will believe it, because we live in a time where overpopulation is actually a huge problem. We're seeing the results of having so many people on one planet. So I think it's something we can all relate to. I don't think you needed to show how the place where he lived sort of decayed because of overpopulation. Like, you can believe that overpopulation is bad without necessarily having a sob story about it. So I was all up for Thanos up until that point, I think. So like, now they're trying to make him sympathetic. No, I did not want that. You know what I mean? It's like, he can have a good reason, he can have an understandable reason, without necessarily having it, you know, a sub story. I didn't like that. And it's funny because it was like half a second. He just mentioned it and did the illusion thing with the reality stone, and they could have just left that out. It would have taken, what, 3 seconds off the movie? But, you know, it is what it is. I guess we're in an age where we need all our villains to have, like, actual motivations with, like, from personal experience, and I'm like, no. You can be against overpopulation, and you can truly believe that having too many living beings in one environment is a bad thing without having had a problem with it, or without at least stating it so. Because then it makes Thanos sound like he was a decent and fair ruler. You know what I mean? I don't like that. That's just me though. For the most part, I would say that this movie, the parts of this movie that annoyed me is not necessarily because they were bad. I think it's because they had too many of my biggest pet peeves, and they all happened, like, together. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm usually really good at suspending my disbelief. I'm a nerd, so in my head I'm only going, that doesn't work that way, that doesn't work that way, that doesn't work that way. But it was really prevalent while I was watching Infinity War, and I couldn't help it because it seemed like they did it right off the bat. Like, for example, the whole thing with Tony's nanotech, like, I'm sorry, I'm an engineer, and it bothers the heck out of me that suddenly on, you know, TV and everywhere around us, you just add the word nano to everything and it makes it sound smarter. It annoys the heck out of me. And Tony did that right at the beginning of the movie. Like, nanotech means nothing, especially since I can see your suit. You know what I mean? It's like, it bothered me, and he did it with Spider-Man as well, so it's something I couldn't get past because it happened so early in the movie. Also, how the heck were they breathing? Like, Maud died because he was flung out into space where he froze over and couldn't breathe. That was his death. So how come everybody else was breathing just fine? I mean, they get to Titan, for frick's sake. Titan! Humans cannot breathe on Titan, we know this. It's like, every time somebody was in a different planet and they were just, like, I can buy it of Thor because he's a god, whatever. Rocket should not be able to breathe in space, and just every time they went on another planet and they were just walking around, I turned to my family and went, how are they breathing? Which is not, it's something I can get past. Star Wars. I can get past that. It's just, if they hadn't done that at the same time when they killed Maw through the vacuum, it probably wouldn't have bugged me as much, I don't think. But that's the thing, is that they did something, and then right around the corner they had another scene where the entire opposite happened, and that bothered me. You know what I mean? Also, gravity was wonky. You know, they had that one scene on Titan where Mantis is like jumping and it's like really slow because of course Titan doesn't have the same gravity as Earth does. And I thought that was fun, but then they start fighting Thanos and there's no problem with gravity. Like, it's totally fine. You know, it's like normal gravity and Spider-Man's just bouncing around. That kind of thing bothered me because you can have one or the other, you can't have both in the same movie. And also, Titan is not a planet, Star-Lord, okay? Please. I'm sorry, it bothered me a lot. So yeah, those little things that normally would not bother me because I know this is a, you know, fantastical movie and I should suspend my disbelief, but you keep the rules for your story. You know what I mean? It's like sci-fi doesn't necessarily have to make sense in general, but it has to make sense within its own rules, and I felt like this movie didn't do that, and that bothered me. Also, let's talk about the ending though, because I had read the comics, you know, I have read bits and pieces of the Infinity Gauntlet storyline, so I kind of knew that it was very possible that a bunch of people were gonna end up dead. I really liked the actual deaths, like Loki. People gasp when Loki died. I don't care about Loki all that much, but I like that they went there. When Heimdall died and when Gamora died, especially. So I was really proud of the movie for doing that, and then the ending happened. And I feel like I gasped for like maybe half a second when Bucky started to disappear, and then I realized it wasn't going to stick, and it became meaningless. It didn't matter at all to me. And I know people walked out of the theater like, oh my god, I'm devastated! And I'm just like, they're coming back. They're all going to come back, and if they come back, it means nothing. I'm sorry. Like, it was sad to see them, how they all were reacting and stuff, and Peter Parker, his goodbye was pretty poignant and everything, but like, he's coming back, you guys. I knew the second that Black Panther started breaking apart, I was like, oh yeah, they're not doing this. It's fine. And then my brother turned to me like, he's like, they're not dying, right? And I'm like, nope, they're all coming back. So yeah, I understand why people like the ending. It just, for me, it didn't do anything. Like, maybe I'm just stone-hearted that way. Call me Lady Stoneheart or something, but I don't care. I didn't care. I did like, however, that they killed Loki. I did like, however, that they killed Heimdall. And I did like, however, especially that they killed Gamora, because I thought that was a great scene. And I hope they freaking stick to it. Like, if they're dead, let them be dead, you know, and let the others deal with the consequences of them being dead. That's my only hope, really. Okay, now that I've talked about most of the stuff that annoyed me from this movie, I'm gonna talk about the good things, because there were a lot of good things in this movie that I really, really liked. And let me just start with Gamora, okay? Because I've never been a fan of the Guardians of the Galaxy. I haven't really seen that many movies with Zoe Saldana in it, like just the big ones, like the Star Treks and of course the Guardians 1 and stuff. I haven't really seen much of her, so I've never really been attached to her as an actress, but Gamora was my MVP for this movie. She was amazing. Like, she made me feel so much. And that's saying a lot, because again, I don't care for the Guardians, I don't care for the Avengers. She was the one that made me feel things in this movie. She was fantastic. And part of that is also why I want her to stay dead, you know, because I don't want her death and that scene when she died to be meaningless. And I've already mentioned that when they bring people back from the dead, then the original death just feels meaningless to me. So I hope that she remains dead, but I do have to give Zoe Saldana a shout out, because she was fantastic. She was the best performance in this movie by far, and I loved it so much. Also, Drax. Actually, it's kind of incredible, because I found myself really liking the Guardians in this movie. I loved them a lot more than I expected to. I laughed a lot more than I expected to. And I think they were sort of the through line for the main plot. Like this whole, you know, Star-Lord, Gamora, Thanos plot. That felt like the main plot of the movie. And I really enjoyed, like, all the scenes when they were together. I really enjoyed. Which is unexpected for me, because I haven't even seen Guardians 2. I didn't even care to see that movie, because the first one was like, okay. So I was not expecting to walk into the theater and end up loving the Guardians as much as I did, but I did, and that's fantastic. I also, in other news that I can't believe, I also really liked the interaction between Tony Stark and Doctor Strange, which is funny because I don't like either of them individually either, but I think the way that they worked out their differences through this movie was really great. It worked for me, so that's good. And also, Tom Holland continues to make me like Spider-Man, and it freaks me out because I do not like Spider-Man at all. At all! Like, Peter Parker for me has always been like that one character that I absolutely cannot stand because I think he's so stupid in the comics, or at least he was when I was growing up. I assume they made him better these days because everything is like grittier and darker, so I assume that Peter Parker would go that route as well. But I never liked Peter Parker, I never liked Spider-Man. And Tom Holland is kind of making me love him. And it's really freaky. That's all I'm saying. Can I just talk about every time Thor called Rocket a rabbit? Rabbit! I'm dying. Like, this movie made Thor funny, and I wasn't expecting that because it harkens back to the first Thor movie, which I actually really liked. He was funny in that, and I missed that of him being funny rather than seeming just stupid. And this movie did that. He was really funny in this movie, and I loved his interaction with Rocket. I thought they were great. Every time he called him Rabbit, I laughed. I laughed out loud, like, Rabbit! Ah! It never got old. It was great. Also, I really loved that Peter Dinklage played a giant dwarf. It made my day. Like, as a short person, I really loved that. It was fantastic, and he did good in the job. Like, I mentioned earlier that I wish the forge scenes had been shorter, and I wish some things hadn't been as convenient as, you know, the Bifrost opening acts. But I did like Dinklage in the role. I mean, he's a great actor, so I was looking forward to seeing him in this movie, and I really liked what they did with it. Also, another highlight for me was the relationship between Scarlet Witch and Vision, which I know that many people found it to be sort of like out of the blue, but I really liked it because I'm a fan of them in the comics, and I really like Scarlet Witch in the comics as well, and I think Wanda is one of the few Avengers that I actually do like in the movies as well. So I really enjoyed seeing them together, even if it was just a little bit. I mean, you could kind of know that by the end of this, Vision was going to have to die somehow. But I really enjoyed seeing them interact like that. It made a lot of sense the way they were arguing about should we stay, should we go. I like that. So, you know, my comic-loving heart just can't help but flutter whenever I see them. P.S. Vision is totally coming back in some form, even if it's not actual Vision, like with superpowers and he can fly and, you know, change his appearance and anything. Even if it's just like as Tony Stark's computer voice, Vision is coming back somehow. Because otherwise, then Shuri's presence in this movie made no sense. You know what I mean? It's like she was working on something when it came to Vision. She was working on something to like Bruce Banner said, to just like grab together everything about him that wasn't from the stone and see if they could put him back together. So I think that's going to happen. I don't know that is definitely going to mean that he's still an Avenger. Maybe he comes back as a human, like Pinocchio but older. You know, maybe he comes back as a computer program. Maybe he comes back as the voice for Tony's AI. But I think he's going to come back because otherwise then there was no point to Shuri in this movie, and I don't like that. Shuri needs to have a point, guys. PPS, I'm all for the older science bros to just retire and pass on the mantle to Shuri because she is the best. She is awesome. She can partner with like Peter Parker. I don't mind. He's smart too, and Tom Holland makes me like him, so okay. But like I just want all the old fuddy-duddies to get out of the way and let Shuri be the genius that she is, because she's amazing. Another thing that I loved is that part of Groot is now in Thor's axe, which I thought was interesting. Like I was saying before, Groot hadn't really done anything for the whole movie, but then in that part, I literally turned to my brother like, Groot isn't doing anything. They need to make him do something, otherwise there's no point to this. And like 2 seconds later, he's stretched out to grab the axe and put it together. And I love that a piece of him is in the axe. I thought that was really, really sweet. You know, and just a kind of a memento of this adventure of fighting alongside other groups of characters. So I thought that was cute. It was literally the only thing that Groot did in the entire movie, but I loved it. At least Hawkeye and Ant-Man didn't die, or at least that we can see. So I'm happy. That's what I said. If I walk out of this movie and Hawkeye and Ant-Man are still alive, then I'm good. So guess what? I'm good. And then there was the post-credits scene. It bothered me a bit when Maria Hill started dissolving. I wasn't expecting Fury to start dissolving as well, but sure, okay, why not? And then the beeper and the symbol, and I think I was probably the only person in the entire room that just went like serious. Like I was waiting because the credits were so long and I needed to go to the bathroom so badly. This movie's so freaking long, you guys. But we were waiting for the post-credit scene, and then it took for freaking ever because the credits were so long. But then it started happening, and I was like, okay, where are they going with this? Where are they going with this? I need to go to the bathroom. Move it. And then the symbol. And I literally just cheered. I went, yes! And nobody that was with me knew what that was about. So I had to be like, that's Captain Marvel! And they were all like, oh, okay, I get it. But I'm so excited for Captain Marvel, you guys. I'm so excited, and I'm telling you, this girl is gonna come in and save everybody's ass. That's all I'm saying. It's like, what are your predictions for Avengers 4? I don't have any predictions. All I know is that Captain Marvel is going to save the day. That's all. Bye! I don't need you. I don't need anybody else. That's all I need. I'm so excited for Captain Marvel. I'm so glad they had that post-credits scene, even if it took for freaking ever to get. They didn't even have it in the mid-credits. They waited until the very end of the credits to give us that scene. But I really enjoyed it. I love that they're already publicizing Captain Marvel. So yeah. So that's pretty much it for my review of Infinity War. Like I said, I like the movie. It's not going to be one of my favorite movies, and I have a lot of problems with it. A lot of things that I had to nitpick. But I enjoyed myself. I laughed a lot. I liked it well enough. It's a good movie. It's probably like midway through, something like midway through the list of Marvel movies for me. It's definitely better than Ultron. I still feel like I liked the first Avengers movie better because I feel like it was more character driven and there wasn't as much fighting as there was in this one. But it was definitely better than Ultron, and it's kind of a huge deal. I mean, this is the biggest movie I think I've ever seen in my life. It was huge, and the Russo brothers did an incredible job putting it all together in a way that made sense for the most part. Because this could have been a disaster, you guys. It felt like most of the characters got a little bit of protagonism, and I still, like, I don't know what kind of sorcery they try. The Russos, like, what kind of sorcery they're working with, because I thought that would be impossible to do, but they did it, and it definitely deserves it. It just became the largest box office opening of all time. Like, it surpassed The Force Awakens, and I think it deserves it, because this is probably the biggest movie we'll ever see in our lives, you know? So yeah, definitely go watch it if you haven't. I mean, if you haven't watched it, why are you watching this video? But it was definitely a great movie. I recommend for everybody to go watch it, whether you're a fan of the Avengers or not, and whether you're a fan of the MCU or not. You really don't need to watch every movie in order to understand this, you guys. Like, I haven't watched a bunch of the Marvel movies, and I still really liked it. So go ahead and watch it. Now, before I go, I want to do this thing that yesterday the Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer came out. And I decided, since I had to record this video, I was just going to tack onto it a little bit of a reaction to the Ant-Man and the Wasp trailer. So I've been dying since yesterday because I told myself that I had to not watch the trailer until I was recording so I could, like, record my live reaction to it. And it's been torture because everybody's been talking about this on social media. The poster was amazing, and I'm just, like, dying to watch this trailer. So I'm gonna watch it here, and you're going to see my immediate reaction to it as I go. I'm just gonna put on my earphones so I can get to it. I need to watch this trailer, like, right now, because, you know, if like I said, Avengers isn't the movie for me. But guess what? Ant-Man and the Wasp is my movie. I have been waiting for so long for this. Ant-Man is my favorite Marvel movie of all time. I love it so much. I love Evangeline Lilly as Hope Van Dyne, and I've been waiting for her to become the Wasp for so long. It's been years, you guys. So the first trailer I adored. It was amazing. And I'm so excited that we're finally getting a second trailer and that the movie's coming out really soon. I'm so excited. So yeah, let's do this. I have it set up here. Okay, I'm gonna start right now. I love her. She's so cute. Oh man. Yes! Queen! I love her so much. Oh. Oh. Ah, she's so cool! I love them. Michael Pena is the best. What's with the music though? She's fantastic. Oh, it's not an ant? I love that. I love it. It's so cool. Oh my god. If you guys are done comparing sizes, that was so great. I love it. Oh my god. It was so good to see Michael Pena's character again. Like, I didn't realize I missed him that much. I really do miss him though. Like when they're in the car and Ant-Man just pops in and he's like, what I miss? And he's like, we were just tiny. Like, it's like a big deal. I love it. I'm so excited for this movie, you guys. Oh my god. And you go low and I go high. I have wings. Why would I go low? I love it. Oh god. Hope is such a queen. I just adore her so much. This is gonna be so great. I'm so excited. The villain looks badass. That is fantastic. Like, she could just walk through walls. I love it. And this whole Goliath thing with Lawrence Fishburne and them comparing sizes. I'm so excited. Oh my god. This is my movie. My movie's coming soon, you guys. I love this so much. It's so exciting. Have I said that? It's so exciting. I'm so excited. I love this movie. This trailer was great. The only thing that I didn't really like was the music. Like, what the heck was up? The music was weird. It just did not fit at all. But I love that we get to see all the thieves, Michael Pena and the others back. Him actually working with Hank Pym, and you know, Michael Pena's like, oh hey, yeah, we robbed you before, remember? Yeah, that was us. I love him. He's so great. It's just so fantastic. I can't wait to see this movie. Like, the Wasp is going to be like on a whole other level. I just adore her. It's so great. I'm just repeating the same things over and over again because my mind is blown. I love this trailer so much. It's so good. I can't wait to see this movie. I'm so excited. Oh, okay. So everything that I didn't say about Avengers Infinity War, I have now said about Ant-Man and the Wasp. But what can you do? When you love a movie, you love a movie. And when you love a character, you love a character. And I can't wait for this movie. Is it July yet? Please. I need it. Okay. So that was it for me. That will do it for me for this video. It's gone on for long enough already. I've been talking about it so much, and I could talk about the trailer for like 20 minutes more, but I'm gonna refrain. I just wanted to let you guys know that I wanted to do that for you and have an actual live reaction to me watching the trailer for the first time. I loved it so much. So yeah, that's gonna be it for me today. As usual, if you have any suggestions for topics that you want me to talk about in the future, just drop them in a comment. If it's anything that I have any knowledge of, I'll make sure to add it to my list of videos to make in the future. Books, movies, TV shows, that kind of stuff. I look forward to it, so be sure to drop them in a comment and I'll add them to my list. In the meantime, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you like my stuff, please subscribe to my channel. I'm always happy to see people sharing and liking and watching and subscribing. It really does help a lot, you know, those pesky YouTube algorithms. The more people watch and share and subscribe, the more my videos get distributed around, so please go ahead and do that. In the meantime, you can find me on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at girlsareweird with underscores between the words, and I am on Tumblr at girlsareweird with hyphens between the words. You can find a Facebook page for this vlog at facebook.com/FreakingNarnia, and as usual, you can visit my main website at FreakingNarnia.com. All my videos are up there in case you missed any and you want to catch up. It's all up there, so be sure to visit. Also, I wanted to let you guys know that if you want to hear a more positive spin on like the Avengers thing than I had for you today, I also was a part of the Fandom Feels podcast for the fandom.net this week, where we talked about Infinity War. It was a group discussion, so there was a lot more positive energy, I would say. They pulled out the positive out of me in that case more than I did here today. So be sure to check that out. I was part of it for just this one episode, but it's always fun to, you know, talk about it with fellow fans and just fangirl in general. So the podcast you can find at thefandom.net, and I believe they're on Twitter as well at fandomnet. So be sure to look it up and give it a listen. Speaking of which, I am still uploading podcast versions of this vlog to, you know, all the podcast distribution platforms like Apple and Stitcher and whatnot. All you have to do is look up Talks from Freaking Narnia and you should be able to find it. I uploaded 10 more episodes over the weekend, so I'm now up to 30. I'm catching up. Yay! Only 42 to go. So yeah, be sure to look it up. If it's easier for you to get this content in podcast form, then that's your perfect solution. Also, remember that I have a Redbubble store where I make art based on my favorite quotes from my favorite fandoms, and then you can use that art to print on different merchandise such as t-shirts, coffee cups, computer covers, all sorts of cool things in there, so be sure to check that out. And yeah, I think that's it for me today. I will see you guys next week with another talk from all the way in freaking Narnia. It was nice seeing you, Rabbit. Don't if I don't watch that, maybe Scarlet Witch. In Titan, the fight with Thanos, especially Thor's hammer, because it's like, have you not read the Evil Overlord